Greetings, and welcome to The World According to Pleiades on KFUG Radio in Crescent City, California, 101.1 FM. The 1-hour weekly radio program that covers everything from alternative medicine, hypnosis, meditation, success, human interaction, alien abduction, and the question of, what is reality anyway, to name but a few. I'd like to welcome Tom Boylan. Holus Bolus, am I saying that right?
Yes, this is correct.
Holus Bolus. For the listeners out there, thank you for joining me again. And if you were with us last week, I showcased a lot of Tom's work, and I'm very happy and pleased to say that, yes, he's sitting with me here right now. I actually was granted that interview that I was hoping for. Well, Thomas Boylan, Holus Bolus, one person, one man, multi-instrumentalist, referred to as a one-man-psychedelic-Acousti-loop artist. He builds songs one layer at a time, and this gentleman has toured extensively the west coast of California and the Pacific Northwest as a whole. Welcome to the World According to Pleiades. Thanks again for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to be here today. I would like to ask...
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. There, you heard it there, folks. See, I'm not making this up. He's really here.
Thanks for having me.
Right off the bat, I'd like to ask how the heck you manage your time. I mentioned it a bit on last week's show that you're an extremely busy person with everything you do. You have your own solo thing going as a Holus Bolus. Do you also shorten that to hobo or not?
Well, it's always been Holus Bolus.
Okay.
And then about 2 years ago, I put out 2 albums as Holus Bolus. And that's just all me. And then I decided to put out a short album, an EP, about 2 years ago. It was going to be a short album. I decided to shorten my name. So I just kind of gave it an abbreviated name. Okay. And I went ahead and did several tours under that name. And now I'm back to work on a new album. And so I've just gone back to Holus Bolus. Okay. Which means all at once, which is, sort of what I try to do live. On my studio albums, I do overdubs, so, it's not so much recorded live, but, the term Holus Bolus is all at once, which is sort of based on a live format, and so I've been just kind of going back to that.
So you're using some kind of device. I mean, because I've seen quite a few now of your YouTube videos.
Sure.
And what's going on there? I mean, you'll start out like on the drum, and then you'll move to something else, and it'll keep... I guess that's part of the whole Acousti-loop thing?
So looping.
Yeah.
It's called looping. So for the people who don't know what looping is, it's sort of a live way to record one track at a time and play it back simultaneously, So... they've been doing looping for a really long time, like the Beatles did looping. But what they did is more like in the 4-track format, where they would record a part, and then they would play that part back and record something over the top of it. So, they would lay a guitar track, and then the bass player would listen to the guitar and play a bass part. Well, if you fast forward to modern technology, now they have a little device. So you can go ahead and play a phrase and hit record, and the second you hit stop, it just keeps playing it in a loop. So they call it looping, and so I go ahead and just do one at a time with each instrument, and so it's sort of my version, like the modern version of what a one-man band would be. For decades, a one-man band meant the guy with a bass drum on his back and playing a horn and a guitar at the same time, a tambourine on his knee or whatever it may be. But, in the modern world, we have all these fun electronic toys, And so I found a way to sort of encapsulate what a one-man band would be, but utilizing modern technology. So it's a way of using real acoustic instruments and also using modern technology at the exact same time. So that's in a sense also all at once. It's sort of using, actual instruments, but then adding modern technology too.
That brings up another point for me. How many instruments do you play? I just recently discovered that you play piano as well. I mean,
yeah. So, I grew up playing piano. My first love was drums. I had a neighbor across the street when I was a little kid that had a drum set, and he'd open his garage door, and he'd be just sitting out there wailing on these drums, and it just took everything in me to just hold back from running over there and wanting to jump on that kit. It was a dream of mine since I was a little kid. And so I got some practice drums when I was a kid, but most parents, they're not too keen on their kid learning the loudest instrument in the neighborhood. So they got me practice pads, and then settled on having me take piano lessons. So I took piano lessons from when I was really little, 5 or 6 years old, up till high school.
Wow.
And I had to go out and get a job and save my money, and then I went and bought my first drum set.
Wow.
And once that happened, everything took a turn there, because I finally got to learn the instrument I'd always wanted to learn. So and then piano wasn't so cool. And piano lessons wasn't so cool by the time you got to high school. So, of course, rebellious teenagers, I wanted to learn how to play guitar because it was cool.
Okay.
Right? Well, fast forward in my life, I sort of began self-teaching myself guitar. And I have the piano background, so I, understood a lot about music.
Right.
Went into college, minored in music, which taught me a lot about writing music. And then from there, I've dabbled in other things. I learned how to play a little bass, and I lived in Santa Cruz for some time. When I was there, bluegrass was a big thing, and so I bought a mandolin, and I've learned some mandolin. I'm not too good at that, but the only thing I don't know how to play, really, that I'd love to, is a horn of some sort. Okay. But that's in the future.
So you've had the music in you basically for forever. I mean, because
since I was probably 5, I would say.
Wow. And you've actually pursued that interest, that love, in such a way where you've actually had formal schooling. Yeah.
Well, I have a bachelor's degree, and my main degree is in sociology. So I minored in music because that was what I took most of any additional classes I could take was all in music.
That is just really so wicked cool. You're not just some guy who picked up a guitar. I mean, you've been you've been a channel for the muse, as I call it, pretty much ever since you could perform in that way, ever since you could be that.
I wouldn't say perform so much in that, because when I was a kid, the most performance I ever did was piano recitals and talent shows in grade school, and I was terrified of getting up in front of people and playing. And so when I did take up drums, after college I actually got in a band playing drums, and I went on to be in a touring band, a national touring band, and did that full time with my life, and I got to devote my life to just playing drums, which is my true passion. But at the same time, it wasn't until that band split up and I had all this other base of knowledge of some guitar and piano that I thought, well, I don't have a band now, but I have all these things. How can I go ahead and just be my own act in a way? So that was my first foray into actually being like in a performing sort of atmosphere, I was terrified to sing and terrified to play guitar in front of anybody. But, I started at an open mic night, and in front of about 5 people. Yeah. And I was terrified.
So what drove you to push yourself even though you were feeling that fear?
I think it was just, it's the thing, it's like this primal thing where sometimes the thing that it seems like the hardest, or the thing that maybe nobody's expecting from you because they don't expect that you could do that, lights a fire under you, and you're like, well, I'm going to give it a go because they don't think I can, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, see what happens. And I honestly still don't feel like I understand guitar at all. Wow. But it is really at the center of Holus Bolus. I mean, that is the central thing in it. But, I also see a real value in just in self-taught, you develop your own style. So in a way I've just sort of embraced that, and I've used my music knowledge that I've had since I was younger and through college to give me a base of knowledge about it, but like every time I sit down at these instruments I learn something new. So
okay, and that's saying a lot from somebody who's been exposed so deeply over the years. I have a question. Since you did start out so young,
right?
It sounds to me like your family was very supportive. Was your entire family supportive, or who do you feel was the most supportive? Or can you even answer that?
My mom.
Yeah.
My mom. Yeah, she. We always had a piano at our house, and she didn't kick me out of the garage with my drum set when I borrowed it from junior high. And my Mr. Ernst was my junior high band teacher, and I went to him and said, could I borrow the school drum set for the summer to learn how to play drums? And he said okay, and so I brought it home, and my mom was like, okay, So every day I sat out there playing, and she had the patience. She took me to all my piano lessons, and always went to my piano recitals. And she still goes to my gigs when I play, in Portland, where I grew up and where she still lives.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're originally from Portland, Oregon?
Portland, Oregon, yeah. Beaverton, actually, but Portland.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I think Portland, Oregon is awesome. I haven't been there yet, but I saw a documentary about 8 years ago, and I put it on my list of places I'm going to love.
Well, yeah, and it does have that reputation now as being, a pretty progressive, cool city. And I felt like when I grew up, like in the 70s and 80s, it was not as cool, and it's come into its own in the last, 10 to 20 years. And every time I go back, it just seems to be more and more cool.
Now, your family had a piano right from the beginning. So why?
I don't know. I have an older brother. He's 3-4 years older than me. And, I think he had wanted to learn how to play piano and guitar. He had a guitar before I did.
Okay.
He started taking piano lessons before I did. So I think it kind of started with him. And then, we would go to our piano lessons together, and I would sit and wait while he had his entire piano lesson, and then he would sit and wait while I had mine.
Okay.
And he was in marching band. As I was in junior high, he was in high school in the marching band, and then, he's always had a love for music too. So I think, my mom was a school teacher, so I think she always really believed in the arts and in music, and I think she just really wanted to support that. So me and my brother went through all sorts of instruments, and he played clarinet and bass clarinet, and his main instrument in high school was bassoon, and he played tuba in the marching band.
Yeah.
So, there was this sort of, music always centered around our lives.
Okay. Is he still doing something with music today?
Not so much. Not so much.
Yeah.
He appreciates it, and he goes to my gigs, and but he's got a family. He's super busy. So.
I hear you. From what you've mentioned, it sounds like basically you started out solo I mean, with recitals and things like that. That's a solo experience.
Totally.
But then, if I'm hearing this right, you don't feel like it really turned professional until you worked with a band?
Yeah, I got a lot of experience. Okay. I was in a touring band out of Santa Cruz in the mid to late 90s, and we all quit our jobs, got in a van, and we toured the country.
Wow, you got really serious about it.
Yes. And,
oh my God.
We were a trio at the heart of us, and we had different instrumentalists that would sit in with us and play, but the heart of it was me and Gene and Mike, and our band was Liquid Foundation.
Okay.
And I had this musical brotherhood with the guitar player, singer Mike, and we every day would sit and work on our music. After we get done with our jobs, and we started getting gigs, and it got to a point where we were doing enough gigs where we all thought, well, we could actually do this full time. So we did, and it was one of the hardest times of my life. But also one of the most rewarding. And we toured, pretty steadily for about 2 years throughout the whole country, to New York and back, and concentrated everything from the Rockies west. But that experience was a lot of stages, a lot of bars, and a lot of interesting gigs all over. And that really gave me a confidence about being on stages, and stages of all sorts. So when I started over as Holus Bolus, it started with me at an open mic night with a guitar, and then me with guitar with a little looper, and then my loopers got bigger, and now I have a bigger one even yet, and I've graduated to a more complex, larger version of that. But all along, I think the experience of already being on stage in front of people was there. But in that band, I just played drums. I sat in the back. I didn't really sing and play drums. I know how to do that more now. I play in a local band here, the Joint Chiefs, and in that band, I'm just a drummer. But I do sing every once in a while, and now it comes very much second nature.
Yeah.
But that all began with Liquid Foundation and gave me this base of like what it's like to go out on the road and play different stages and to be in front of people. And we were a jam band based on improvised jams. So it gave me a real base of knowledge of improvising in front of people, which is what I do. My act, is based on improv. I start with a blank slate.
Okay.
I turn the power on, and there's nothing there. And then I start with one layer at a time and build it up. And so it is an improv-based thing.
Wow.
I have a song in my mind.
Yeah.
A basic structure. I know the chords. I know the words. I know the song, and I could sit and play the song with an acoustic guitar in front of you. But Holus Bolus is about layering everything up, and by the end, when you're listening to the crescendo of the song and the peak of the song, it's as though there was 5 of me. So it's I don't know. I think that all definitely came out of touring with Liquid Foundation. Liquid
Foundation, you mentioned that was a really hard time for you too. Why? What was that about?
I think it was just hard because I had sold everything I owned, and I bought a Volkswagen bus for $400 in Santa Cruz, which is one of the most expensive places that you could possibly set as your home base.
Okay.
And I didn't have a home, and I had a Volkswagen bus with no real place to park it when I left out of town. So everything I had, I shoved in that van, and I threw caution to the wind, and I jumped into a different van that the band had, and we went ahead and just did our thing. And I would come back about once every 6 weeks after doing, Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and I'd be back. And I would do that big loop. It'd take about 6 weeks for us to do all these gigs. And I came back, and, when you're a musician that nobody knows who you are, you don't make a lot of money you can make money while you're out there moving about, and it's more day-to-day living. But then when we would come back to Santa Cruz, I would have 10 days, and we would all come back, split our money, and I'd have, $50 for 10 days in an old Volkswagen that barely ran. So that made that hard.
Adventure.
A lot.
Wow.
But the experiences I had with those guys and that band really set up what is Holus Bolus now. And I owe, so much gratitude, and, I owe a lot to those guys for what they taught me about life and travel. And I taught them as well. It was this learning experience with all three of us. So,
wow.
We're all in different places now, and I keep in touch with those guys, and but I think about them all the time because I'm so busy now with Holus Bolus, and it's overcome my life. So.
Speaking of being busy, I started off wanting to ask you how you manage time, and I don't think I actually went there. I think I sidetracked myself, but I know you run generally twice a day, like a 5-mile morning run and a 5-mile afternoon run isn't an unusual thing for you. You've already mentioned that you're drummer in a band called Joint Chiefs. You're, of course, doing the solo thing. And beyond all that, you also hold down a job as well. I don't understand. I'll sit down, I'll do something, and pretty much it's a challenge for me to fit the tiny amount I have into the course of a day or a week or a month. I don't even understand how you can do it. Is it ever in a space for you where it seems like you're just constantly running on overdrive, or how do you manage?
Coffee.
Okay. It's good coffee.
Coffee. I really don't know. I think it's been this slow... My life wasn't always this busy. And it's like, I've said this before, but, I run quite a bit now, but I didn't just start out running this much, and this is like a larger metaphor for life. I started with running down the block, down 6 blocks, and then down to the beach and back, and so my goal was, we'll make it to the beach and back. Okay, we'll see if I can do that twice a day. All right, so we do that, and then I just add a block. Let's make it to the beach and add 2 blocks. And so, and that's sort of a metaphor for how I've come to be as busy as I am now. And it's, I've just slowly found ways to fit all these things in my life, and everything comes down to prioritizing your time. And I think also finding balance, which I know you understand that. Balance is, I think, it's huge. And, there's balance in my songwriting, my looping. There's balance in your relationships, balance with how many gigs I do, where I do my gigs. You have to look at everything feasibly and say, can I do that? And then, although, I don't know, I would probably do a gig anywhere if anybody asked me to, just because I do love to do it. And I do stretch myself thin at times with the travel. But, I feel like I'm sort of, in a way, a king of doing odd gigs, because I feel like I've had an opportunity to play in so many different kinds of venues, and it's hard for me to say no. And every time I take a gig and what seems could be an odd thing, it always turns out cool, and more oftentimes, it seems like I'm always asked back, and that's all I care about is, making a connection with somebody and coming back.
This may be an odd question, but for me, thinking of the whole time management thing, it doesn't seem odd. But okay, you've got your own solo thing going on. Why do you stretch your time management skills to also perform in a band?
When I first moved here, I had broken up with Liquid Foundation. We all went our separate ways, and I ended up here in Northern California, and I didn't have Holus Bolus yet, and I didn't have a band, and I was trying to make music connections, and I of course met Dale Morgan, who's the very first person I met here as a musician that everybody knows, and so he invited me to, this is about 14 years ago, he invited me to play at a benefit show at what used to be the Bookcomer. And at that, he had invited all sorts of different local musicians. Well, one of the local musicians he invited was Bob Tiernan, which is Robert Tiernan. And to me, Bob is the, possibly the best musician I've ever met or had opportunity to play with. And also the most humble musician at the same time. Just a really cool guy. So I met him, and we were instantly, I felt like I had known him forever. So we did our gig, and I got to know Bob. And then, it was just a month or two later, he called me up and said, I'm jamming with these other guys. I have been. The drummer just left. Do you want to play? I said, sure. And from that point on, I met Bry Anderson, who's he's the founding member of that band. And Bob and I have been playing together now since that first year I moved here, and it's just the most laid back and fun band experience I've ever had. And they're amazing artists and musicians, and it's just absolutely pure fun. And It's not really about doing gigs, and it's not really about, becoming famous or even traveling out. It's just about the music of those guys. And so it's so enjoyable that, I just fit that in, no matter what happens, those guys are like my family and my brothers here, and I love it. So
that's beautiful.
And every time I play drums with those guys, and I see the musicianship of all of them. Now, we've had the same bass player, Ross Morgan, too, Dale's nephew. It's been the four of us for quite a few years now, and I just learn so much from them, and I walk away from any time I'm playing with them, play a gig or jam with them, I walk away with knowledge about music that fuels what I do in my solo ventures with Holus Bolus.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And once again, if you've just joined us, this is The World According to Pleiades. Today I have Tom Boylan, Holus Bolus, One-Man-Psychedelic-Acousti-loop artist, building songs one layer at a time, and pretty much just putting it all together as he goes, with, it turns out, many, many years of experience in the field of music. This is someone that I really do consider as a channel for what I call the muse. This isn't somebody who at 19 decided he wanted to be famous, and so he picked up a guitar and started learning a few chords. This is someone who at 5 years old was already inspired to channel that vibration out into the world. So once again, Tom Boylan, Holus Bolus. I would like to ask you, you mentioned that whole, what I'll call stage fright thing,
Sure.
and moving past that for someone that's out there in the world listening right now, and maybe they're in the midst of feeling locked in by that fear. Do you have any tips or tricks that could help somehow move them from the closet to the stage?
Well, I think, I think one of the biggest things is just, you have to take the first step, whatever it may be. There's other things I do in my life where I feel like it's really encapsulated, that one being surfing. I've been surfing for over 20 years now, and it's terrifying when you start to surf. And, but the only way to learn is by just getting out there and doing it, and wrecking, and learning how to hold your breath, and just getting back up and going back and doing it again, trying to stand up on that board until one day you actually do it. And it's the will to make things happen. And, I think I had a will to just make it happen with learning how to be in front of people and sing and be on a microphone and not be afraid, because no matter what you do, it's never going to feel comfortable at first, and you are going to make mistakes, and you just have to roll with that. And I think eventually you make less and less mistakes. And I still, because of what I do, being improv, being built live in front of everybody, I make mistakes every time I play in front of people. But, in the same respect, that's kind of what makes the performance special, It makes it not perfect. It's not glossy. I created it with you, in front of you, from nothing. And it's, once you build that song up, that's the only time it will be like that. That's the only time you will have seen it like that. So it's really living in the moment and not being, afraid to take the first step. So, a lot of people worry that they're not going to get up the first time and sing perfect. And they're going to get up there and make a wrong note. Well, you will. I mean, that's just how it goes. But the next time you get up there, you're not going to make that same mistake again, because you don't want to. You don't want to make the same thing happen. So it's the will to just keep going, and eventually, like we were saying before, like with surfing, with running, you just add just a little bit every day. Next thing you know, the full picture is actually there. Sometimes you don't know how you got from point A to point B, because there's so many things in between,
That is awesome. I mean, I'm really enjoying listening to the way you're expressing this, the way you're sharing it. And it's so true. So many times in life, people will be afraid of making mistakes. And there's a saying that goes with that. I forget what it is, but it's like if you're afraid to fail, if you don't try, you already failed.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
It's very true. Very true. I grew up when I was a kid golfing, and I took 20 years off of golf, and then last year started golfing again. I was kind of terrified of that little white ball.
Okay.
But it's the exact same thing. You say this is an impossible task. How can this little ball get 300 or 400 yards down the way in that little hole and only hitting it a few times? How can that possibly be? And I'm a terrible golfer. But I keep going because I feel like it's the same as all these other ventures in my life where, you got to love the process. You have to love the process of seeing yourself achieve something, and I see a huge reward in that. It's like, what's the use of living if you're not living, and trying to experience these things.
That's huge. That's huge. I'm really enjoying your expressions here today.
I feel like if I could do it, anybody could do it.
Wow.
I feel like I am nothing special. I feel like I don't really know how to play guitar, but I'm winging it, and I love what's coming out, and I love the process.
Wow.
So, I feel like anybody can do anything in this life, as long as you just keep trying.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome advice. It really is. Jumping back in to, in a way, the time management thing. Have you ever felt just too tired to perform? I mean, it was, you've had a day and it just wore you out, but you've got a gig, and how do you handle it?
Well, there's kind of an unwritten rule with musicians that somehow I've always known this, and it's been reinforced by the people around me, Bob Tiernan being one of them, that you just, no matter what happens, you got to do the gig. There's, I've had instances where I was sick as a dog, and I did not want to be there.
Okay.
But, the show must go on. It is you, it is your soul, and, there's something about that once you book the gig, you got to do the gig. I had a scheduling conflict about a year and a half ago that somehow I play at one local pub here once a month, and I book several months in advance, like all at one time. I'll get booked 3 or 4 gigs, and the guy called and he said, "You're supposed to be on stage," and it was an email that I didn't get, and it was the first time in my entire life.
Oh man!
And Bob, it was the first time in Bob's entire life, because we do a lot of gigs together, and the first time that had ever happened to him, and it just killed me. and that was, and that was an email mistake. So it wasn't even, didn't have anything to do with any sort of health conflict or anything.
Yeah.
But
so what tricks have you implemented so you're sure that never happens again?
Check my email all the time.
Yeah. Maybe follow up with some phone calls if I don't hear from you. Or...
I just try to make sure I'm on it, and every time I book a gig, it goes right up on my website.
Okay.
So.
Well, the year now is 2016. This is, what is this right now? This is March 28th.
March 28th.
Speaking of gigs, you are appearing April 1st at Thomasini's.
Yes, local. Well, and so, it's like one of the only local venues for music here in Crescent City. And it's been Thomasini's Enoteca for quite some years now. They just sold that to new owners, and they are dropping the Thomasini's. They're just going to be Enoteca.
Oh, okay.
I haven't played in Crescent City for probably at least a year and a half. So this will be the first time in quite some time that I'm actually playing in town. They had not a regular music scene before when it was Thomasini's, and then they had a rotation of people who were playing down there quite often, and so I would work into that rotation when I could, but then this last year and a half, I've been so busy with regular gigs elsewhere, out of town, in Brookings, that their rotation was filled. I didn't have time to do that, but now with new ownership, they're going to be having a lot more music. And they're opening it up to a lot of different other bands. So this Friday, April 1st, will be the first time in quite some time here. And I feel like I've logged a lot of gigs under my belt since last time I was in Crescent City playing. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we all are very excited about it. So are you starting at 7 p.m.? Or?
So at 7 p.m., I do a lot of gigs with Bob Tiernan. We just share gigs. He is also a solo performer. He's also the guitar player in the Joint Chiefs. So we're good friends. He usually starts and we'll play 45 minutes to an hour, and then I usually play for about an hour with my stuff. And then we usually end up jamming together. We do, a good half hour, 45 minutes of stuff with the two of us. So,
okay.
So it's kind of a full night of music. I'd say I go on probably about 8.
Okay, so you'll be on probably about 8. And how long will this be lasting for? Did you mention that? I'm not sure if it went right.
I think, we'll probably go till 10.
Okay.
It's like 7 to 10.
Okay, and is there a cover or?
No cover.
Just walk in?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And they've got great food down there and refreshments and whatnot. So, and they've got a bigger stage since last time I played down there.
Okay.
So I'm
built
excited.
it just for you.
Yeah, right.
Well, Tom, how has your music changed over the years?
Well, I started with classical piano.
Okay.
So I was classically trained. The Suzuki method, which was a method of teaching. And that my piano teacher, it was a way of teaching where you would listen to tapes and you would listen to repetitively, and then you were supposed to be able to sort of regurgitate that playing. That didn't really fit for me so well, but I learned a lot, about music that way. And then as I got a little older, I began sort of finding my own path. My piano teacher after that was Virginia Sorber, and she was classically trained also, but also, there was other, she would throw in other things there. So it wasn't until, I think high school, with the advent of learning drums, that I discovered hard rock and electronic music and reggae and this whole world of music. So I took my base of music knowledge, kind of found my own path of what I liked. I began wanting to seek out pop music on piano, and I specifically remember that time period in high school where I was kind of tired of working on Chopin, and I wanted to instead learn like Journey and Motley Crue, and like these bands, that were surrounding me at the time. So, that began a transition. Then studied music, learned a lot about jazz, got really into jazz for a while. Had a radio show myself in Portland.
Nice.
Jazz radio show.
Oh my God, Tom! I mean,
and so with all that, and then really the thing also that kind of set me on my path where I am currently was my time touring with Liquid Foundation. Those guys were into the Grateful Dead and Fish. I mean, that was their life. I mean, we all listened to everything, but in the van touring with the band, we were listening to Fish, Allman Brothers. Lots of Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia Band, but that wasn't the only thing. But that's what those guys had passion about. They loved me being the drummer in the band because at the time, I was listening to Neil Young and I was listening to Tool, and I was, like broadening their, experience, and so that, the combination of all of us and what we created as a jam band, gave me, I think, fuel for what I do now, which is sort of taking some of that psychedelic and some of that more songwriting approach, the acoustic thing mixed with just basic like acoustic rock, mixed with songwriting, but improv too. And I recently just got a synthesizer, which is taking me even into a more spacey realm. So pretty excited about that.
That sounds very exciting. It really does. I'd like to ask you, just off the top of your head, in your whole musical career, or even before, if something pops in there, so far to date, what would 3 of the most memorable experiences be?
Musically?
Relating to music.
Well, one very memorable experience was playing in New York City with Liquid Foundation. We played at a bar nightclub in Manhattan on September 6th, 5 days before September 11th happened. The only thing I did that day was go to the top of the World Trade Centers. We were driving back across the country to a gig that we had in Colorado, in Denver, on the 11th. I was in Iowa on my way to that next gig. And so for me, like that whole day, my day spent in New York, playing, and going to the top of the World Trade Centers, playing that night, I mean, I was just blown away that we were able, our little band made it from Santa Cruz to New York City. And, just played to a huge packed house, had a great entire, experience. So that would probably be, one of the more memorable ones. I think with just learning how to play, my first time with a guitar on the microphone at an open mic night, that is a huge memorable experience for me. It was really over the top. Just because I was conquering those fears about singing in front of people, and I think about what I do now, and I have all this stuff going on, and if I could remember back to that moment of fear of like my hands won't stop shaking, and I need to sing right now. That is a super memorable thing. And then I think one of the other ones would just be one of my regular summertime gigs that I've been doing now for 5 or 6 years is going to Leavenworth, Washington. Leavenworth's one of the most interesting places that I've ever been. It's a Bavarian, German-themed town. The entire town, you drive up through all these mountains and come down, opens up into this town that looks like, everything looks like you're in Germany.
Wow.
And so there's this really amazing place there, Der Hinterhof. It's called the Beer Garden. They have an outdoor stage, and I got to play, I played there 5 or 6 years now every summer, and once again we'll be there this summer in July. But year before last, or maybe it was 3 years ago, I guess, I got to be playing on that outdoor stage. They made a fire in a fire pit, had a great audience, And then it was about 95 degrees and a thunderstorm started. And I just thought to myself, how did I get to this amazing place, doing my thing, getting to be Holus Bolus on this stage, and such a great atmosphere, I will never forget that. So
wow,
there's three,
that's
three of many experiences.
And I was transported. I was there, and then when you were talking about your first time overcoming the fears, I was feeling that. You really express yourself really well. There's nothing flat about it, and of course that moves into your expression music-wise too. It's definitely something you feel. You don't just hear when Tom Boylan, Holus Bolus, performs. It's not flat. There's nothing flat about it. I want to keep asking you questions, and I will, but I also want to play a couple of your songs. So I'd like you to comment, if you would, on the first one we're going to play. This is Find Your Way Back. And what CD is this off of?
So this is originally on my second full album, which was entitled Time Machine. And I have a studio version of that on that album. And then when I put out my Hobo EP, I had a great live version of that song from a show that I played here at the Crescent Auditorium. And I got a pretty good recording from that. Plus, it was, talking about those experiences you'll never forget. That was an experience I won't ever forget, because it's a great room, it's a great sounding stage, and there was about 200 people there. And I got a great recording from it too. So I put the recorded version of that song on my EP, and that song is about touring. And I have this thing in me that I do love to tour, and I love to go hit the road and play places. That's kind of been one of the cornerstones of what Holus Bolus is. Also, is just, I think it comes back to my days living in that van with those guys. I have this thing in me that I just love to hit the road and go to new venues and new cities I've never been. The people you meet and the places that you end up playing, I don't even really care where it is or what it is, because every experience is always so unique. And so that song, Find Your Way Back, is about going out there on the road, playing, and then coming back to where you live. Because when I toured with the band, I didn't have a home, so I didn't feel like I had a place to come back to. I had a Volkswagen bus, was my home, and I'd still love to come back to my Volkswagen bus. But where I live now, I love. And so as much as I do love to go out and travel, and that is like a huge passion of mine, I also love to come home, because there's a feeling like no other when you actually come back to your home. You put that key in your door, and it's your little place in the world. So so that's what that song's about. And it's also, I think, it's an example of sort of how I feel about touring and coming back. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. That is beautiful. And so here we go. Find Your Way Back.
Put it on the road, 'cause you know as you go, you know always find your way, always find your way, always find your way back. lights that shine for you can also take your sight. When the choice is made with what you've got, hold your head up high, take it to the top, to the top, to the top. Open up your eyes, open up your soul, and give it away to roll. Vision of the future, made an indecision, put it on the roll. 'Cause you know as you go, you can always find your way, always find your way, always find your way back home. Turning now in a move that's made from knowing how. The energy encompassing the lighting in the dream, in the dream, in the dream. Open up your eyes, open up your soul, and give it away to roll. Vision of a future, made of indecision, put it on the roll. 'Cause you know as you go, find your way, always find your way back home. Find your way back, find your way back, find your way back. Find your way back, find your way back, find your way back.
Okay, welcome back. I won't say I hope you enjoyed that song because I know you did. We're going to play one more song, but I think we'll save that one to the very end, just to give Tom a heads up so he'll have it in his mind, like we didn't already talk about it.
Right.
That one will be called March to the Moon. But right now, Tom, I'd like to ask you, what would you do differently, if anything, if you could go back 20 years?
20 years. You know, I don't... that's a really hard question because every experience you have, I believe, whether it is, you know, difficult or easy, every experience you have makes you who you are now. And we've all had our ups and downs. And, you know, 20 years ago, I was in my early 20s, and I took a big leap after college to move to the coast to a little teeny town. And that's where I learned how to surf and started a whole, you know, venture of my life. And so, you know, I don't think there is really anything that I would do different because every step that I've taken so far in my life, I feel like I've followed an instinctual intuition about whether to stay, whether to leave, whether to stick with it, whether to, you know, come back to it, whatever it may be in all those instances. So, you know, I think 20 years ago I graduated college and I moved to the coast and I learned how to surf. And because I learned how to surf, I moved to California. If I hadn't moved to California, I wouldn't have met with the guys in Liquid Foundation. If I wouldn't have done that, it wouldn't have taught me about stage presence and about looping. Mm-hmm. And then if I wouldn't have done that, it wouldn't have brought me to where I am now with my music career. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's not, I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me to say, well, I wish I would have started singing 20 years ago, or I wish I would have focused on guitar more. Because it's not really I'm where I am now because of all those other experiences, whether directly or indirectly.
Okay.
I feel like I've followed that intuition. It's all you can do in life, I feel like, is, you're presented with the fork in the road, and you have to just make your best choice and think about balance, and what's going to be the right thing. I'm not saying that I've always made the right decisions, but I feel like, if you trust your instinct, whether you go down that fork in the road and it leads you to a difficult place, that difficult place is going to, down the line past that, give you a wisdom and a knowledge that, is irreplaceable, So, all in all, I'm okay with everything.
Yeah.
20 years ago till now.
I hear what you're saying, because any changes that you would set up, if you could go back in a time machine, would cause your path to take different.
Yeah, it's like everything that I've ever.
So it's like, I don't want to touch a thing because I like where I am today.
I feel like everything I've done to this point is all based on Back to the Future. That's taught me how to get to where I am.
Nice.
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, for real. So you do have a lot of experience. I mean, you have a lot of experience in all kinds of different things in all kinds of different ways. On that level, what marketing or self-promoting strategies have you used, or are thinking of using, or are presently using? And this is kind of geared to also maybe help some aspiring artists out there who's racking their brains.
Well, it's an interesting question, because we are currently in a huge state of flux in the world of music. The pattern that was set from when it first began up until now, you were sort of seeking a way to make a recording, and then you were going out on the road and selling that recording. And, people bought your album, and there was an actual album with artwork. And now, with the advent of the internet, music is most of the time free. And, nobody really knows the direction to go to self-market, because right now we're in a, I wouldn't say it's a difficult stage, because, like I said, every experience you have is going to make you stronger and give you wisdom, about how to handle the future. And I feel like, this is difficult now for musicians because, well, for instance, I just reduplicated my Time Machine album, and I'm finding now when I go out and play gigs, a lot of people don't have CD players anymore. So, having even an album, a CD to sell isn't really an option anymore. So, nobody really knows what to do to get yourself out there, and, as we all have gotten sucked into the world of Facebook and social media, that is an incredible resource right at our fingertips. You can reach people, on the other side of the planet on an intimate level with them seeing pictures and hearing your music without actually having to send them the album through the mail for them to get it to their hands. So you have this access at your fingertips. It's almost too much power, so finding a way to harness that, for me, I've gotten on Facebook, and I really do enjoy Reverb Nation. I have all my stuff up there also. I'm not a Twitter guy, so I'm not really on there.
I don't even understand Twitter.
I don't really get it. I had a friend explain Instagram to me, and I think I'll probably kind of get in with that a little bit, because it sounds kind of up my alley. So, I guess it's one of the things that I learned from touring with those guys, once again, in Liquid Foundation. They were deadheads. They were fish heads. They were all about the grassroots level of getting out there. And that's what the Grateful Dead was about, is the grassroots. Just go out, meet people, and play gigs. And, that's all I really know how to do now. So my strategy is go ahead and embrace, like I do with Holus Bolus, embrace the modern technology, but also the reality of go book a gig, Don't just sit in your house and record something on, your recording device and then just upload it to YouTube. I mean, that's great. But to get the full experience, I say, don't be afraid to take that step and actually go out there and play somewhere, because that's really what music is about anyway. It's not really, it is about the recording experience and listening to music on your iPhone, or it is about MP3s, it's about vinyl, cassette tapes, it's about all those things. But the reality of music, comes down to the primal caveman instinct of wanting to make music with other people and for other people. And so marketing, I say, embrace what you got to, but get out there.
Okay. Excellent advice, to be sure. Thank you, Tom. Well, how would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to, inquire about, hey, we want you to come here, we want you to...
Well, I do have my website, which is holusbolus.com.
holusbolus.com. And you mentioned Facebook?
And I'm on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/hoboguy. When I put out my Hobo EP, I also got the website, hoboguy.com. So both those, everything kind of leads to the same place. But my website, holusbolus.com, thomasboylan.com, they all go to my Holus Bolus page. And on that page, there's a link to my Reverb Nation page. There's a link to my Facebook page. There's a link to YouTube videos. There's a link to buying my albums. So, that's really the best way. And I have a way on there too. People can send me a message through that.
Okay.
Seems like everybody is on Facebook, and so you can, I can always get messages that way too.
Have you chosen over the years, because of all your experience, have you chosen to not go the way of an agent or manager? And if so, why?
No, I haven't. That was the biggest driving thing, and that was always the biggest driving thing with getting to the next level in days of past. You got in a band, you got a record deal, you went and made the record, you got a manager that put you out on the road. Well, when I first started, at least with Liquid Foundation and touring, we didn't have a manager. We were trying to get somebody interested because we were in the old mindset, but it was right at the time when the internet was really starting to take off. And back then, I would have to book gigs by, making calls. Nobody really does that anymore. Everybody does everything by email. Right? We didn't really need a website before. We got one, but it was still so new that we didn't really even know how to put stuff on it or how to use it. So we were in that old mentality. With the old mentality, you needed a manager or a booking agent. But, we didn't have that. And so, I was the booking agent for the band, And when I got out of that experience, you're starting from nothing again. I started from nothing to create what Holus Bolus is. It's like get on the stage and play an open mic, and then book yourself, at the bar down the street, and it just slowly built like that. And it's gotten to a point now where I'm got a really busy schedule. I've got tons of venues, and I of course, like any musician, want the venues to get bigger and better and reach as many people as possible. So that is something that I would love to have an agent, a manager, somebody that could help me get to that next level. But at the same time, I feel like I've reached a level now where I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
It's like you can do anything you want in this life. You don't have to wait around for a manager to help you get there. Just go do it.
Right. Although the manager or the agent would like a lot of people to think that you can't without them.
Yeah, that you need
but
them.
But you already know you can.
It's I feel like I'm living proof of the fact that, if you want it, you just go do it. And the musicians that I feel like I've been most inspired by were people that were, they would just take a gig, and, they take a gig in a garage somewhere for some local neighborhood. Next thing you know, it's like it doesn't have to be something that's an official deal, But, I am in it to reach as many people as I can. So, I would love to have that representation. Though now you can reach people without having that via the internet.
Yeah.
Via your show.
I hear you. I'm going to throw this one out. I wasn't really sure where to fit it. If I were just to say, what would you consider some of the dangers and pitfalls of a musical career? What would you say, just off the top of your head?
That there isn't.
Okay, that way I was going to say, and maybe there isn't.
No, there is no danger or pitfall. It is, as much as you want to give it, it will give it back.
Okay.
You just have to be willing to go for it.
Man, I'm getting this feeling of move forward fearlessly, and even if you do feel the fear, move forward anyway.
It is, like I've said before, balance is everything. So. I guess I would find that there was pitfalls if I didn't try to have relationships or do other things, and I let music take over, and I didn't let myself have balance. But I gotta go golf, and I gotta surf too.
And
I don't want to run. I don't want to. At the end of the day, just walk in the door and sit down and start practicing all the time, because I feel like you need all these other experiences in your life to give you fuel for that. So there's balance. You don't want to neglect your music, but you don't want to, I think, do only that. So I think the pitfall would be, if you just do that and you give up every other thing in your life just to do that, well, I feel like that's not the right answer either.
And that's not balance.
That's not balance.
You are like this example of balance. I mean, and I know you're not even trying to be that. It's just, just you. Well, we are coming to the end. We're going to, in closing, we're going to play March to the Moon. I'm going to come back on just before we end with that, and I'm going to ask you another question. Well, even before that, you were mentioning the fourth album. What would you like to tell us about that?
Well, I actually have pretty much a full album written, and I've recorded some basic tracks for it, but I'm so busy right now with doing gigs, doing tours. This the busiest time I've ever had with my music, as far as playing shows. That once again, I'm trying to find balance, recording, but focusing on my live show at the same time. So I've been doing a lot of the songs that I have written for that album live. So maybe my next album will be a live album. I don't know, but the name of the album is yet to run, and I need to just keep chunking away at it, and before too long I'll have something new.
And so maybe you've already touched on this, for people that would be interested in your CDs. Are they available in stores? Yeah. Where can we find those?
Online, really. Links from my website. I have them on Amazon.
Amazon. How would
cdbaby.com.
How would somebody find it on Amazon? Just Holus Bolus?
Holus Bolus, yeah.
And how do you spell that?
HOLUS BOLUS.
Okay.
Yeah, really the best way is just from my website, because the link will take you straight there.
Okay, fantastic.
So that, or come to my gig. I have been just giving away CDs left and right.
Oh my God!
Just because I want to get my music out there.
Okay, well now there's going to be so many people that April 1st,
If anybody has a CD player anymore.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. Well, once again, this is The World According to Pleiades. This is Tom Boylan, and he is Holus Bolus, and we've had the great opportunity of interviewing him today. As I mentioned, we're going to close with March to the Moon, and I would like you to comment on that, and then before we go to the song, I've got one more question for you. So would you like to comment on March to the Moon?
Well, March to the Moon is sort of a studio version of what I do live. I've put out several albums, and they're all, done with overdubs. So, I went and did one track at a time in a studio. And then, at the end of that, I have a full song. And then I would take those full songs, recalculate them in a way that I could do them live. Well, March to the Moon is an example of actually looping in a studio. So that is a looped song. I just started from nothing, and I went ahead and hit record. There's an intro to it that's just about a minute long, and then it flows into the song, and that's all done live. So as you hear it fade and the next thing start, it was just all recorded at one go. And I feel like that's a pretty good representation of what how I start my shows. I usually start with sort of nothing and kind of, noodle around a little bit, and it flows into, I do March to the Moon quite a bit as an opening track because it is instrumental. It's the only instrumental thing that I've ever recorded in the studio. So, but I feel like I wanted to, go ahead and put out there a representation of what I do looping, because that is the center of Holus Bolus. And like the previous track we played, Find Your Way Back. Find Your Way Back it's done live, and it's with the looping. So I start with the drums and just take off from there. So, both the tracks we played, sort of are, examples of what I do in my live show. Most of the other tracks on my CDs, they're things I've written and just done one track at a time. Comes out as a full album. So, I guess that's March to the Moon.
Fantastic. And here's the last question. Tom, is there anything you'd like the world to know about you as a person?
Well, I guess not so much. I guess what I've already said really is that, you can accomplish anything you want in your life as long as you just try. And that's what I've tried to do, and what I feel like comes out through my music. And so, all in all, don't be afraid to take that first step and see where it leads.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thomas Boylan, Holus Bolus, an amazing man, an amazing person, an amazing artist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to The World According to Pleiades on KFUG Radio in Crescent City, California. If you have any topics you'd like covered, or you feel you have the potential to make a good interviewee, please send your suggestions and or information to KFUG Radio, 270 I Street, Crescent City, California, 95531. Attention, Pleiades. Or email me at radiointerview@moonstar-enterprises.com. That's radiointerview@moonstar-enterprises.com. My name is Pleiades Moonstar, and I love you.